Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in the always sunny Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is the fabulous Katie Ford, and we are going to get into her story here in just a minute. I want to encourage everybody to learn while they earn. Get your headphones out, your earbuds, whatever they are, put them in, turn on this podcast while you're working, doing monotonous tasks of a flooring installer, and get your education on. Learn how to run a better business. Getting time to go to college probably isn't going to happen with your busy life. I know, because I'm definitely not getting there. So audiobooks, podcasts, this is how I've done it. Even if you're only taking away 10% of what you hear from the episode, you are going to get a nugget of wisdom, and you're going to, if you actively apply it to your business, it is going to change your business one step at a time. I know, I've been doing it for like 5 years now. That one little takeaway every time, and then you actively apply it. It's going to make a huge difference. Let a friend know. Please let a friend know. Go, when you're at the supply house, go tell them, hey man, you should listen to this podcast. It's going to help me out. It's going to help you out. They're going to love you for it. And then subscribe, leave a review. All those things are absolutely the best things you can do to help this podcast if it has ever done you a favor. Katie, who are
Kyle.
you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Well, Kyle, first off, thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate it. And I'm coming to y'all from Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee.
Woo.
And it's great to be here today. And I'm Katie Ford, and longtime industry veteran. I have been in the floor covering industry all of my life. I was born into it. I come from 4 generations of flooring peoples. My great-grandfather was a hardwood installer. My grandfather installed carpet and wood. My dad was an installer and owned a large retail store in Texas. My uncles were both installers. My sister works for Shaw, and then I was in the business as well. So I'm sure, as most of our audience knows, that you're born into this business, you stay in this business. And I grew up saying, I'm not doing flooring. And then when I was about 27, in a desperate desire for a real job to get out of waiting tables, my dad suggested I go to work for a flooring manufacturer. And so I started with Mohawk and was a sales rep for them.
Okay.
Out in San Diego. I was a builder rep. And then I worked for BOU for, I think, about 6 years. I was a territory manager, and I ran and developed a sales training program for them. And then I spent my last 6 years at Shaw as the director of brand strategy. I started off as the director of marketing for Hard Surface, and then I was the director of brand strategy for Anderson Tough Techs, along with having multiple other little projects in there as well. And I worked for my dad off and on. So yeah, here I am. And it's been great.
Director of brand strategy. That does not sound like any small position.
It wasn't, I have to say, when I went to work for Shaw, I had always wanted to work for Shaw. I started with Mohawk. Mohawk was a great company. Mm-hmm. I did their sales training program out in Dalton, where you go out and you stay for 6 weeks and they teach you all the things about flooring. And then they come to you in week 6 and they say, hey, you're moving to X. Well, mine happened to be moving to Southern California, to San Diego. I think I got the best deal out of everybody in my training class. And I was a builder rep out there and dealt, I would run into the other Shaw reps on occasion. And I always thought, I was like, man, I love Mohawk. Mohawk's great, but I want to work for Shaw someday. So when I got the opportunity, I had a friend, a former regional vice president who used to call on my dad. He reached out to me about a marketing job. And at first I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about marketing. Like, I don't have a marketing background. I'm a salesperson. I've trained. But I went in and did my interview at Shaw, and I met with, at the time, the VP of marketing and Scott Sandlin, who's now the head of the residential division. And we had an amazing interview, and it was just like the perfect fit. And I got right into Shaw, and they took great care of me. I was able to learn, all the marketing skills. And then I moved into this brand strategy role, which has elements of marketing. But that started when we took the Tough Techs and the Anderson brand, who were separate, and merged them together. And that was when I really started all of my brand strategy.
Okay.
was with that.
Which that's amazing. Like, it's funny how you can, look, I'm not supposed to be a flooring installer. I went to for-profit college that had the worst accreditation ever, and the joke was D's for degrees because it was true. And I'm supposed to be working on movies and television sets right now, and here I am as a flooring installer. So like, you just kind of end up places, and then it turns you into a whole new person. What I want to know is, what were you doing waiting tables at 27? Like, what was the dream then that you were just like, I'm going to make it happen?
Well, Kyle, I have to say, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I had no clue. I mean, I was a terrible student. I hated school. I hated school so much. I probably shouldn't have graduated from high school due to the numbers of absences and tardies and poor grades that I had. Same with college. I was on the 6-year plan with college. My parents were finally like, you need to get out of school and pick a major. Like, this is ridiculous. Because I changed my major, I don't know, probably 10 times while I was in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I think my dream as a kid was I was going to be a rock star. I was going to be on stage.
Okay.
I was going to sing. I was going to travel the world. I was going to be a rock star. That's what I wanted to do. But I really wasn't that musically talented. And while I can sing, I don't, I'm not like Beyonce or Whitney or anybody like that. But I kind of pushed that dream aside and figured something else would kind of emerge along the way. And I just really didn't know when I went to Texas Tech. I'm originally from Houston, Texas.
Okay.
And I went to Texas Tech and I graduated with a degree in English because that's what I had the most credits in. So I end up with this English degree. I get out of college and the first thing I'm like, I think I was like 24 at the time. And I was like, I have to get a real job. Because that's what they tell you, right? Like, you get out of high school, you go to college, and then you get a real job. So I was like, I'm going to go find myself a real job. So a friend of the family's owned this insurance company. And I was like, I'm going to sell insurance. So I went and got my certification to sell insurance. And I worked in this office in this small, tiny little town in Texas. I was living with my parents. And I thought, this can't be it. Like, this can't be it. I was making $8.50 an hour. I was there from 8 to 5 every day in this windowless office. And I just thought, I hate this. I'm going back to waiting tables. That lasted 3 months in my real job. I was just like, I'm done. I'm really not cut out for office 8 to 5. I have learned that about myself. I'll work my butt off. I'll work 80-hour weeks as long as it's not in an office. So that's what took me back to waiting tables. I moved to Houston. And I was working in a really high-end steakhouse, making really nice money. But what I was starting to see is, if I don't get out of this, I'm going to end up staying here because the cash was really good. And you could become a career server, which is fine. But I was wanting something a little bit more. And so I started looking for something in hospitality is really where I wanted to end up, either a banquet coordinator, an event planner, or something along those lines. And every door just kept shutting. And that's when I sat down with my dad and he was like, you should be a sales rep. He's like, you would be a great sales rep. You're really great with people and you would probably like it. And I think my first response was like, hell no, I'm not selling carpet. You're crazy. Like, I would never, ever do that. But once I met with Mohawk and they sent me back to Georgia, I quickly fell in love with the business. Like, I got it. North Georgia is amazing. I loved being in Dalton. I loved seeing all the history of our industry. I loved going into the facilities and seeing carpet get made, watching the extrusion process, seeing, carpet get tufted, watching the backing process. I mean, it was all so cool. And I did like sales. And once I got out to San Diego and got into the builder side of things, I loved the builder side of the business. I mean, it was 2008, which was a little bit
ouch.
But it was still, there was a lot to learn. I still, keep in contact with, some of my first accounts and I loved it. I really, really loved the industry. And I loved that so many people in this business, like it was multi-generational and people are so warm and so great that I think I will always stay connected with this industry because I absolutely love the people in this business.
You're born and bred for it, but I stumbled into it and I've received nothing but some of the best friendships I've ever had, some of the best support I've ever had. It's just, this podcast was born out of me needing the info, but now I feel obligated to do it because it's not, look, yes, I have obligations because I have sponsors, folks. Like, I get that, but like, I feel obligated to do it because of everything this industry has given me. I've got to give back in some way. I can't not do it. And so I get it. You meet really good folks in this industry, better than most other places I've participated. Because like you, I've been all over the board. And I originally out of high school was working at UPS and got into part-time management. I was like, oh, this is the thing. Like, I'm going to become full-time management here. I'll get great stock benefits and like, I'll coast on this for 40 years and get my Rolex at the end or whatever, right? Get my gold watch and call it a day. And that didn't work out. I screwed that one up. And then I went and did some other random things and then got it, I finally need to go to school. Like, I've screwed up so much, and went to school and worked in reality television, and that didn't work out. And then I started a flooring business. So here we are. This appears to be working out a lot better, but I'm a little bit older and wiser. So you've had a lot of life experiences. You're a free spirit, if we will, if we can call you that, if that's a good defining term.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I think that a lot of my friends would say, yeah, she's a bit of a free spirit.
So
but you can be really grounded too.
Well, I think the best way I can put it is I have like a 5 to 6 year tolerance for things. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just bored because I feel like if you look at the people that, like, they say, there's that book out that it's 10,000 hours to master something. What I learned was I started looking at it. I was like, I get bored after like 5 or 6 years. But if you average 2,000 hours a year working, after 5 or 6 years, you hit your 10,000 hours and you're like, I'm pretty good at this. I want a new challenge. So I'm not going to lie. Like, in the past year, I've really struggled with like keeping an interest in doing what I'm doing and wanting to run my business and move it forward. But I've made commitments and I've said things, and now I feel obligated to build what I was talking about. So you jumped into a career path, and it was a very lucrative one. You were doing very well for yourself. And then
it was great.
You were on the train and you pulled the line and you full stop. So what happened?
Yeah, I know. I ask myself that same question some days. Like, what did you do? Why did you do this? My career trajectory was going all the way. I mean, I had some really nice offers, while at Shaw for some competitors, to come over and do even bigger things. And I didn't want to leave Shaw. Like, I really, really loved working at Shaw, but I knew that there was going to be more. Like, there was going to be the VP of marketing someday. There was going to be CMO role. There could have been this whole thing, like this whole path to all the titles and all the monies and all the bonuses and all the 401ks and which is great. And I think there's probably could still be like this part of me that's like, I want to get back on that. But I think in my mid-30s, I had really, I'm 42 now, and in my mid-30s, I had really started thinking like, I want to take a break in my early 40s. Like, I just want a minute to pause. I want some time to like do whatever I want, to travel, to read a book, to take a walk, to just be able to have some freedom, because I think that's what all of us work for. Like, we all work so hard to get those moments with our family, or it's travel, or it's whatever. But a lot of times we have to like do our 2-week vacation or week vacation or weekend vacation and like get right back to it. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to wait till I'm 65 and maybe not, who knows, maybe my body's not still in the same health. Maybe my mind's still not in the same health. I want a midlife retirement. So at about 35, I started getting a little smarter with my finances and thinking about some different ways to save and put some things away, and made some different investments and got myself into a position where I could do that and feel pretty comfortable about saying, okay, I'm going to take this pause.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, Kyle, even with the money, even with like the amount that I thought I needed, like I got to that number, and it was still like a year before I could actually pull the trigger and quit my job, because it wasn't about the money. It was so scary, because like, who gives up a good job with a great company that pays you really well? You're in a great career in an industry you love, with people who love you. Like, what are you doing? And I think for about a year, I sat in that and I was like, what are you doing? Like, this wasn't a decision that I just came up with one day, like, oh, I'm gonna quit my job and like quit. This was very carefully thought out. And what would happen? What would Shaw say? Would I be permanently kicked out of the flooring industry? Would I ever be allowed to come back? Would I be committing career suicide? Would I completely be annihilating my retirement? Like, all of those thoughts came in. And I was, what finally did it, I'm very close with my mom and dad, and I talked with them, and they were fully supportive of this. And then my now fiance was very supportive of it as well. And, he's like, babe, anything you want to do, he's like, you work really hard. You're in a position to be able to do this. I think you should do it. Like, and if it doesn't work out, then you can always go back. And, so I did. I was out on my morning walk one morning. I knew I had to go to Dalton. I went down to Dalton. I met with Scott Sandlin, who is a very dear friend of mine. And I was also working for him at the time, and sat down and we had a very long talk about this. And he was like, why don't you just think about it over the weekend? And I was like, that's fine. I'll think about it. But I think I've made my decision. And when I left his office that day and got in my car, I knew I'd made the right decision. Like, I could have backed out at the time. I could have thought, no, but it felt right here, which is what I always try to go with, is like, what is this saying? Not always this, because this can get, this, I'd probably still be working at Shaw, but this was like, no, it's time to stop. You need a break. And it's a year, or a year, just be a year. So, I called him back on Monday and I said, Scott, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And he said the sweetest thing. He was like, well, the door is always open here. And that was like, I was just like, oh my gosh. So
that's big. Yeah.
That was relief to know that, like, okay, if I, freak out in 2 months, that I could give him a call and we could, he could put me, maybe running a tufting machine down at one of the plants or something. I don't know, but he was going to find me some work.
Well, you left on good terms. You didn't up and quit. You didn't commit career suicide. You weren't telling anybody off. It was, hey, I want to invest in me. And I can get that. As a lot of people listening to this show, and myself, entrepreneurs, we sit out and we take a different approach, right? We don't go get a cushy corporate job and kind of hit that. Like, we don't want to struggle. We don't want to do too good, because then they expect you to do all the extra work, and you don't want to do bad enough. You get fired. You try and find that middle ground and just coast along for 40 years and go. And not that that's what you were doing, just in general, like, if you're going to work a corporate job, you kind of just try and find your way through and not necessarily stand out and not do so bad you get fired. Like, you just want to coast along, get your raises as you go, and end up with a decent retirement. And you take this entrepreneurial route and you say, I can guarantee myself a paycheck. Well, that's already stressful enough. And then you start adding a company and employees and relationships and children on top of it. And it's more and more and more and more and more. But the whole reason we did it was because we were like, man, this sucks. I hate working for somebody. And then you stress yourself out with all these other things and you forget why you were doing it. And you originally, most people I feel originally decide to start their own businesses to be like, it's going to free up time and I'm going to be able to go out on the boat on the weekend and cruise around and have fun and do all these things. And then you get, once again, you start thinking with your head, like you said, and you get caught up in, well, I just got to go do this one thing. And then I got to go do this thing. And then if I can just get this, and then if I can just get the bank account here, and it catches up with you. And I commend you for realizing that, like, okay, this isn't cool. This isn't me. This isn't what I want. And being able to say, let me find a plan to make this happen so that I can just kind of, I can find me.
Yeah. And I don't know what, I still don't know what that is. Yeah. You know, working for a corporation is great. And, there, especially one like Shaw and, you know, Mohawk and BOU, the ones I work for, and BOU's not here anymore, but they were wonderful companies. And so many people there, they're lifelong career people at those companies, and those companies take really, really good care of their people, and they make it really hard for you to leave because there are so many incentives to stay. I mean, there's great 401k, there's great stock options, there's great bonus plans, there's great all kinds of things, and they want to hold on to their people. And you know, I'm still, you know, I still want to have enough money that I'm not like on the street,
Yeah, well,
you know.
Okay, yes.
But I have had to look at things in a different way, because since I started working at 15, I have worked for somebody else. My first job, I was a server, but I worked for somebody else. And I did that all the way till I was, you know, 41. And, you know, there is something that puts you at ease knowing, for the most part, you are going to get paid every 2 weeks or week or whatever. There's going to be a check there at the end of the evening when you collect your tips. But even in this past year, I've picked up some little projects, and it has got me thinking, okay, well, if you are going to do this thing on your own, this is hard. This is hard.
I'm laughing because it's like, it's always, it happens all the time. You like, everyone thinks it's going to be easy, and it is hard. And you don't realize it at first.
It's hard because it's hard for a lot of, there's freedom in it. Yes, I agree. Like, I love being able to set my own schedule, but like, you have to go out and advocate for yourself. You do your own social media, you do your own marketing, you put your own brand, you know, logos and fonts and websites. I mean, I had a team who used to do all that, Kyle. Like, they would make everything pretty. And I'm like, I can't even decide on a logo for myself.
I look, CNN here that's going on. If you're paying attention on YouTube or on the Facebook group live, like, CNN was created by me over here. Like, this did not happen by itself. I don't have a team. Like, I had to figure out how to use all the software and make this happen. And yes, my previous background helped me, but like, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And you start taking, and you're like, okay, well, it's just this one thing. Well, that one thing leads to 10 more, and you didn't see it at first.
No. And it's like, not only, I mean, it's like you are, it's you. And I think I knew that, like, again, in my head, like, because I'd always looked at entrepreneur, and my dad was an entrepreneur, and he kind of made it look like, oh, this is just, you know, what you do. And I like, now, even in the little things that I have done to put together, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's you. It's it. Nobody is like making you show up on your whatevers. Nobody is like funding your stuff. Nobody's like, you don't have an expense account, you know, like, it's you. And how are you going to manage your business? I last weekend hosted my first wellness retreat. Something I had wanted to do for a long time. And I'm a yoga instructor now. I think you mentioned that earlier. So I got my yoga certification last summer, which is something I had always wanted to do. And I teach yoga several times a week, but I had wanted to host a wellness retreat for people because people are stressed the hell out lately, and they need a minute. They need a minute to move. They need a minute to breathe. They need a minute to be still. So I had wanted to do this. I had a place where I wanted to do it. You know, I don't have this big, vast email list. I don't have, you know, I have a little social media following, but I don't put out regular content. And I'm like, but I'm going to put this out there, and I know how I want it designed. So started working on this about 3 months ago, put the schedule together, and I'm like, okay, well, it's here. I've booked the space. Now, how am I going to, where are the people? Like, how am I going to get the people? And it was like, oh, I got to do Eventbrite. Oh, now I've got to create the stuff for it. I've got to create the graphics, and I've got to create this, and I need to do Facebook ads, and I need to reach out to some friends, and you know, all of these things that, like, it was on me to do and to generate and to, figure out how to budget everything and what did I want to keep and take out. And it's my money. And I know it's kind of a small thing, but I felt like it was really one of the first things I'd ever done that was like, oh, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is me. I had 24 people show up last weekend, which was
Wow.
huge.
That's a lot. Good
which
job.
was about what I wanted. And everybody had a great time. It was an amazing day. And, we moved on, and now, here we are a week later, and I'm like, okay, now what? I guess I have to do another one, because that's it. Nobody's saying, oh, now you got to do another one,
Mm-hmm.
or now you need to do a bigger one, or now you need to do one in, California. Now, it's like, no, you decide now, what are you going to do next? And having that much autonomy, while I know we're all adults, is kind of a new thing in a way.
It's hard.
My life's been very controlled by the companies I've worked for.
Mm-hmm.
They provided a lot of structure for me. Like, you're going to come here at this time, you're going to fly here, you're going to go see this person. But when you're on your own, it's you. And you make all the decisions. And I admire and respect everybody out there who is running their own business, because it's hard.
Well,
it's
and
hard.
I don't think it's really hard at first. Like, even though it's just me, I have a machine now. I used to wake up every Saturday morning at like 6 a.m. and get on Facebook, and I would post to about 55 different local community groups in Phoenix to drum up business. And so I would talk about the project I did, finished up that week or the week before, and I'd make this nice post like explaining everything and throw it up, and then that would give me a bunch of leads to go do bids at. And so 3 years of that got me to the point to where now I've posted once since January. I'm booked until it's March 25th as we're recording this. It's not going to come out until like middle of April, I believe, or late April. But I'm booked until the end of May. And I was starting to get worried, like, down to like 8 weeks, 6 weeks, somewhere around there. Like, oh, maybe I need to start advertising and drum up some business. I've gotten 3 phone calls in the past 2 days. I haven't done a darn thing to get them. I had a bunch of stuff. Yeah. I had a couple of leads come through my website, and I was like, oh, well, I guess it's working. Like, I always kind of had this feeling it would take 3 years to get like enough word of mouth to just kind of exist and happen. And that's what it took. It was like 3 years. But now there's kind of this machine that, yes, it makes it a little bit easier, but there's still 8,000 other things going on in the background. How do I've added a little boutique retail shop. So yes, it sits there 98% of the time. It's 10 minutes from my house. I haven't been there in like 3 weeks because I haven't had any clients needing to go in and look at it. But when they do, like, I got to meet them over there. I got to get them the sample. Then I got to go out and measure the house, pick up the samples. And then I've got to schedule the delivery. And like, you build the machine in one area, but then you add something else in another area because it's kind of becoming automatic. And it's interesting to see someone kind of at the beginning of the journey, because do you really want to host wellness retreats all the time? Is that what you want to do? Or is it that was a fun thing and now it's weird at the beginning, because where do you go? What can you take it? What can you build? And your brain goes a million different directions, and it's hard. And so that's kind of why I want to have this conversation. Like, I don't mean to keep cutting you off and not letting you talk. That's why I was like really interested in having this conversation with you, because I think it's very valuable for listeners to hear. Like, one, it's always important to remember where you came from. So if you've been doing business for 20 years, it's always inspiring to remember where you came from. But there's a bunch of people that are listening that have been in business a year, 2 years, and like, they don't have the machine, and it's intimidating to like listen to people talk about how to build systems and processes and really get going. And like, I think what you're doing, this like finding yourself and really trying to discover who you want to be and what you want to do, it's inspiring to sit there and have had this amazing corporate job and just be like, that's great. I can go back to it if I want, but what's really going to put a smile on my face every day?
Yeah, that, and like knowing when it's time to take some time. Okay. Like, so when I was with Shaw up until 2020 hit, I was on the road every week. Like
Ooh.
I was somewhere, I loved it. I was with customers, I was with salespeople, we were doing trainings, we were hosting mill tours. We had put these two great brands together. I mean, it was like the best time of my career. Like I loved like that first 5 years with Shaw were like just they were amazing.
Hmm.
Like I was like, I'm doing this forever. Like I would never quit doing this because I was so on the move all the time. I didn't have a minute to even be still. It was just like we were going, 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 going. And
Yeah.
then 2020 hits and it's like we're working from home, you're not flying anywhere. And for the first couple of months, we were all still getting adjusted like, well, how do you do a Zoom call? How do you have these meetings? And it was
Hmm.
quiet. Like the whole world was quiet. I was quiet. I was at home for like weeks on end for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh, like I've been really busy. And the little, your little internal voice that we all smash down and don't want to listen
Oh,
to
yeah,
that
yeah,
tells you like, take care of yourself and like, take a break. It's that nice voice
yeah.
on the inside.
Yeah.
It had some room and it was like, hey, remember what you were going to do in your early 40s? You were going to take some time off. It's time. Like it's time, it's time, it's time. And it's like it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And like I said, it was like a year of that. And I finally was like, okay, fine, let's just do it. And my first year, yeah, I like took a vacation, like not really even the first year. I would say like the first 6 months, I like took a vacation. I went to Hawaii for 3 weeks. I spent some time with my family. I just like recovered like my creativity. I was tired, I was
Hmm.
worn
Hmm.
down, and not only from work, but just from that freaking just all the crap all of us have had to deal with the past couple of years. Like it was just so. It was just time to be like quiet and reflective. And then I think as I started like getting my energy back, I went right into, oh my God, I need a business plan.
Hmm.
Like what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to
Yeah.
make? And I had all these ideas. Oh, I'm going to start my fashion line. Oh, I'm going to, have this. I'm going to have that. I'm going to do this. And, I'd start down this road of business plans and I'd end up frustrated and like stressed out. And I'm like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Like,
Okay.
I think I'm supposed to, like, this year was about, it was not about trying to force something to happen. Okay. It was
Hmm.
about like listening to what is speaking to you, which
Okay.
is, hard. Like it's
Yes.
going to yoga. It's sitting in silence. It's meditating a little bit more. It's like, I even roll my eyes at this crap, cause like it's like, really, you want me to
It,
sit still? I'm a goer.
it doesn't fit the corporate world. It does not. It's what
No.
we need, but it doesn't fit. I'm going to interrupt us for 1 second here.
Sure.
The International Surface Event, the annual flooring, stone, and tile sourcing experience in Las Vegas, has a unique experience for the industry. Introducing the Surfaces Show Home, Caliboo Vineyard by Jennifer Farrell. Surfaces is working with celebrity design and TV host Jennifer Farrell to develop a 7,300 square foot show home in California. The home is under construction, but due to the technology from Visualizer Plus, the industry can experience virtual room reveals each month. Then plan to view Caliboo Vineyard in person or virtually summer 2022 during the home tours. Visit www.caliboovineyard.com now to sign up and join the journey. Okay. It's a lot of people have referred to this like recent time as the great resignation.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID kind of shut everything down, and I think what you experienced was a lot of people experienced it. It was, I'm not go go go, I'm not full of these 1 million distractions, and I can't go from point A to point B to point C and just never have a moment to stop and think. And a lot of people, I would call it, it's the great reset in my opinion. Like we can,
Yeah.
a lot of people have just decided like, this isn't for me. I'm finding something new. Like, I'm going to go do what makes me happy and fulfills me because I've had time to stop and think. And so maybe all the technology and the traveling and just the amount of pressure that's put on you from your job that you have or your business, maybe we don't need any of it. Maybe sitting in silence for 3 hours a day doing yoga is what we need. Maybe sitting down with our kids and reading Green Eggs and Ham is what we need. You know, does it really matter if somebody ends up with a new line of carpet in their house? Is that truly making you happy and making a difference? And look, I love this industry. I love that it pays my bills. But at the end of the day, like, I have to go. I don't generally work weekends. I'm going to end up putting in 4 hours tomorrow, putting some quarter round on some kitchen cabinets and caulking some baseboards in. And I need to go get this project done so that I can move to the next one on Monday because some things happened during the week that kind of screwed up my schedule. Would I much rather wake up and like be able to snuggle with my kids and take them to the gas station and buy them some donuts? Man, that's a way better investment of my time. So I think what you're doing is wonderful. I think more people, like, especially as entrepreneurs, like, what's the point in having the business if you can't stop and have time to reflect? And I am horrible at this because being a workaholic is like the only aholic thing that's acceptable in life. You know?
Well, in American life, it is very accepted to be work all the time.
It's respected. Like, oh man, look at him. He's got so much hustle and drive. But what's it really doing for you? What is it truly doing for you?
I know. And here's the thing I wrestle with. I had a day yesterday, okay? Like one of those days where I wake up and I'm like, what? God, like I'm so lazy. Like, really? Like, why aren't you doing more? You know, why aren't you working? Why aren't you whatever, sitting down with your business plan? Why aren't you earning? Why aren't you earning? It's like this, it's this thing that, yes, I do believe earning. You want a roof over your head. You want to be able to support your kids. You want to be able to send them to college. Like that is part of it, right? Like I get it. But it's like, it can be so all consuming with everything.
Yeah.
Like and it be so intense that when you're not working, to beat yourself up about not working, to be like, you're lazy, you're just unmotivated, you can't come up with, I mean, it's like all the thought, like, this is what my brain is like, you know, you need to go back to work is what the brain is saying. Now, you know, my heart, my soul, whatever that little voice is still like, no, you're fine. You're chill. It's all good. You'll know when it's time. And I have to like, then sit down and sit with that. Like, okay, it's time, but it's hard because I want to distract myself away from that uncomfortableness because it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to not be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is earning money and getting a bigger title and a bigger salary and more money in my 401k and setting up myself up for future success. There are days when I feel like I am the most irresponsible person in the entire world. And what have I done to my life? But I think like, it makes me almost like cry because I think all of us wrestle with this. It's like we're sold, you know, you got to go out and you got to hustle and you got to work and you got to get all the things and you need the car and you need the house and you need the kids and you need this and you need education. And, you know, you get it all sometimes. And then you're like, but you're not happy. I'm not fulfilled.
Correct.
Like I got it all. I got all of the things and you're still looking. You know,
it's one goal after another because it's not true fulfillment. It's an ever changing target. And so, I hit this income level, so now I have to hit this one. I got this house, so I need to get the bigger house. I got this car, so now I need to get the fancy car, or I need to get the motorcycle, or this toy, or that toy, or, you know, my kid needs to be able to afford. I need to be able to pay for them to go to Yale instead of, you know, whatever community college or local state university. It's an ever moving and changing target. And so you can never be truly satisfied. I think you hit the nail on the head with, I've got an episode with my buddy Jake Schlichty, and we talk about how you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you're uncomfortable being with yourself.
Oh yeah.
But I think the reason that Americans are uncomfortable being with themselves, for the most part, stereotypically speaking, is because we don't take that downtime to journal, listen to ourselves, calm down, and like really look at how our day went, how we're feeling, communicate that with a spouse, or a significant other, a really good friend, whoever it needs to be. Like, we're not having those conversations. It's just go, 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 go. And then you actually get a moment to yourself, and you're like, oh, I don't like this feeling. Like, I'm going to go find some distraction, or I'm going to find some substance, or I'm going to find some way to not truly fix what's going on. But when you're comfortable being uncomfortable, that's when growth happens, is you have to get into that point where you say, I don't like this, but if I can get on the other side of it, now I'm stronger.
Yeah. So there are days when I sit in that. And like I said, yesterday was one of those days. I woke up frantic, like, oh my God, I need to call Shaw. I need to go back to work. I need to call Mohawk. I need to call somebody. Somebody needs to hire me. I need a job. And what I'll do is, and I'm sure we all have our things, right? Like, when we get stressed, like the things we do. So one of the things I do when I get, like, this is only in the last year, okay, but when I get real stressed, I start looking for a job.
That's so funny. I don't have a job, so I'm stressed out. I got to go find a job.
I am stressed out. I've got to find a job. A job will fix everything. And I'm like, are you listening to yourself? Like, no.
Oh my goodness.
Because, like, no. And today, my fiance, he does remote work. He's in sales, and he was on this, just one of those conference calls, the ones where you're just like, oh my God, roll your eyes. And I'm listening to it. And I'm like, you want to go back to that? You want to go back to conference calls? Oh my gosh. So, it's sometimes that grass is greener, right? Like, because there's been some of those moments, those moments on my days at work where I was like, God, if I had freedom, this is what I would do. I would do all these things. And then there's days where I have like total freedom, can do whatever I want to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should be sitting in a conference room. And I'm like, are you watching? Like, what is happening here? So it's been nice to like have some time to sit with my mind and watch what your mind does. Like, watch what it does. It never wants to be still and happy. It doesn't. It's always looking for like another thing, always looking for like its next hit of whatever. Even when you get exactly where you want, even when your business is running perfect and you've got all the money in the bank and the kids are happy and they're all in college or whatever, you're still going to be like, I think the walls could be a lighter shade of beige.
Something stupid. Correct. Because it's a distraction.
Yeah. Like, I think maybe, it's like, we as human beings, I think, have a hard time with just like being like, okay, like it's okay. The other thing I've really, has hit home is like, everywhere you go, there you are. So just because the situation changes doesn't mean you're not there in it. So like, you take yourself with you, and you take your views, and you take your habits, and you take the way you think about things. And like, no matter what situation you're in, whether it's like a job making all this money or like not working, like you're still with you. Like, you're still having to deal with yourself.
Yes. Well, and that's the scary part is people don't want to deal with themselves, but how do we learn to live in the moment and actually enjoy it instead of thinking about, well, my kid's birthday party's on Saturday and I have to be at the local, pizza arcade joint between 12 and 2 and I got to interact with all these adults. But after that, then I can make that phone call. And I'm horrible at this. I'd 100% admit it. I am not present. I am, like I try and be a good dad. I would call myself a horrible father. Like I'm always trying to get to the next thing, and I'm not in the moment. I used to go fishing at the pond and like down the street from my house and just try and get like 30 minutes in. And I haven't done that in a few years, but that was like a time to like just kind of like zen out and be like, okay, I'm going to put on some tunes and I can be with my thoughts and I can like fish. And I haven't done that. So maybe that's what I need. But like it's find something that lets you be in that second. Yeah. And just experience it, because that's where you're supposed to be. Like at the end of the day, you can talk to people in the flooring industry. Somebody's had a heart attack scare. Somebody, like, there's so many people. Like, I guarantee you, somebody that's had some kind of life tragedy that's happened, that's given them their wake up call or whatever you want to call it. And you can go sit down and have that conversation. And at the end of the day, the money's not going to matter. You're not taking it with you. Yeah, you want to be able to make sure your kids are okay and they're set up and all of that. And look, you can put things in place to kind of help with that. You can buy life insurance or whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, like, what they're going to remember is you hanging out with them at the Renaissance Festival or at Disney, or taking them fishing, or, being present, reading a book with them. It's all going to be stupid moments. It's not the fact that you bought them the newest pair of Nike shoes for $150 because you worked extra hard on Saturday. They're not going to remember the pair of shoes. They're not. Yeah. So I think it's that's kind of like the takeaway of what I wanted to get at with this conversation with you is, it's what you're doing is like, you're finding where you're happy. And even you're admitting that, like, I don't know. It's been a year. I still don't know. And I don't know. I think that's okay.
I don't know. I did, make a big business plan this year, because that's just, how I mean, like, look, you called me a free spirit earlier, which I'm a Gemini, so I've got this duality here. I got this free spirit, and then I've got this other, like, business side, and they live with each other, so my business side this year was like, you need to put a business plan together, because I have an Airbnb, my house in Chattanooga, I leased out on Airbnb, and then I've got this yoga thing I'm doing, and I knew I had some retreats, and
go lookouts,
I go lookouts. Sure. I do some small group travel as well. So I'm taking a group to Croatia in May, and then we're going to go to the UAE in November. Okay. And then a few other little projects. I've done some things with Floor Covering News, and I have a few accounts I work with on some things. But I needed to have a business plan, but I had to remind myself not to get too attached to it. Like, just let it be. This March 15th marked like a year anniversary, which I was actually happy to get over, because I think in the months leading up to March 15th, I was trying to like make something happen. It was like, okay, you're up on a year. Okay. Like you need to make something happen. So, I went to Surfaces, which was great meeting you in person finally at Surfaces.
That was awesome.
But it was like nice to be at the show and just get to see people. And yes. I was wondering, like, am I going to fill this pool to like go try to find a manufacturer to work for, or want to go back to Shaw, or like want to go somewhere else? And I didn't. I just got to enjoy being at the show. I loved it. And
I'm so jealous.
It was great. Like, Kyle, that was my first time I'd ever like been to the show, and I did work.
I'm super jealous.
But
I am.
It was nice, and I'm going to coverings and going down to NWFA too, which is going to be really fun. And it's like having a nice, like, this alternate view of the industry.
Yes.
Like a new perspective. And it's just like, okay, don't try to force anything to happen. Just like see what comes and what feels natural, because it always works out. Like, it always works out.
Yes.
Whatever
I
it is,
believe.
I don't know what it's going to be. I didn't know I was going to end up in floor covering. I didn't know I was going to end up, where I was at Shaw at the end of all of that. Like, I didn't know, but it was like, just keep like going down the path of what feels right and not getting like so attached to the outcome and like be in it a little bit, which is hard because you want to control it and you want to know. And yeah, I want to know what's next. And I don't.
Yeah, well, and I think sometimes you're presented with the door can be placed in front of you and it's open and you can walk in it if you choose. But just because the door is there doesn't mean you have to walk through it. Because I've seen it. I've experienced it. You can be presented with 3 doors, right? Like we can, I can't think of the name of the game show, right? Like you can have the 3 doors in front of you and you can pick any of them and be successful through any of the doors. So it's not necessarily a pick one and it has to be right. Otherwise it's all going to be screwed up. Sometimes you're presented with lots of different options. And sometimes if you pick one too soon, then you're going to miss out on other opportunities. And so I commend you for being able to kind of like take the path of like, well, okay, like that's kind of interesting and let's see what's going on over here. And then we're going to see what we can build with that. And well, okay, now right. Because you're going to find the thing that like really makes you happy and you can really enjoy. Maybe it is a gig with floor covering news and covering shows and doing interviews and hanging out with your friends and having a different perspective on the industry. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's doing wellness retreats. We don't know. And it's okay it's okay to not know.
We don't know. And I think the other thing is like, I don't know if there's a thing that makes you happy. Like, I think it is continuing to focus on being happy and finding your happiness in the things, like, because that's that moving target again, right? So you find this thing, it's whatever it is, and it goes away or changes, and
it's fleeting,
and you got to find another thing. So it's like, how do you just get happy? How do you find your happiness or your peace? I think more than anything for me, it's like peace. Like, how do you find your peace in wherever you are, whatever's going on? Like, no matter what's happening out here or not happening out here, like, can you be at peace in it? And, I think that's more than anything. It's like peace in it.
That's deep. That's beautiful right there. No, really, because it's true. I think like if you're searching for happiness, then you're right. Like you're constantly like, okay, it's this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and like but if you can just be at peace in a moment, then you're in that moment and you're content at that moment. And that's a way different way of living.
It's a way different way of living. And it's like, you feel like you're going against everything you were ever taught, which is the attainment of more. Well, so, right. Like, and the attainment of more is our culture. Like, correct. Why wouldn't you want a, 10,000 square foot house and 10 cars and all this money? And it's like, I think we all think, oh, that's what it is, right? Like, once I get there, once I get enough money, once I get the house, once I get the cars, once I get everything, things will be happy. But no, you're still with you. Still got to live with yourself.
Correct. But how many high profile executives can we look at the different flooring manufacturers? How many different entrepreneurs can we look at within the flooring industry and the contractors running these businesses and say, great, you built something, but you lost a wife and kids in the process. And then you did it again. And some of them did it a third time, probably. So now you're paying out even more because you've got multiple alimonies you're probably paying. You've got multiple child supports you're paying. It keeps going and going and going. Whereas had you maybe taken a moment to enjoy the relationship you were in at that moment and maybe bring home a little bit less, how much more satisfied could you have been had you learned to be at peace with what you had, as opposed to following that American dream and saying, I need more and more and more. And I have that problem. I will not lie for 1 minute that I do not have that problem. I am the growing up with a single mom and having to pay for everything myself, I just want to be able to provide financial security. And to me, that's like making sure my kids are happy. But that's not what they want. That's what I want for them. That's not what they want from me.
They want dad.
Correct. And there's a mental disconnect between the two of us. And that has to be fixed. And so I don't know if they need to come to a little bit of an understanding. I need to come to a little bit of an understanding. But I've got a feeling that the minds of a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old are probably far more accurate than the mind of an almost 40-year-old that's been warped by society for 40 years. So sometimes, kids are brilliant.
I'm gonna say, like, I don't think like the attainment of things and success and all that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that having money and a nice home and a car you like and clothes, all the things, like, those are wonderful. They're like all these wonderful bonus things in your life. I don't think they're wrong or evil. I think sometimes, though, I think it's like stopping and thinking, like, is this what I want? Like, have I wanted these things, or am I feeling pressured to get these things? And if you're like, I want these things because I like lots of jewelry, or I like driving a, sports car, or whatever it is, like, go for it. But sometimes when you sit in that and you think, oh my gosh, whose dream is this? I didn't even want this. Like, I have all this stuff and, like, I don't even want it. I want a simpler life.
Not just that, but is it what your partner wants, right? Like, is that part of the overall goal for the both of you? Or is that something that you got distracted on and now you're way off base and there's no relationship anymore? Like, you've got to be on the same page. And so you might want one thing and they want another. And if you're not finding a way to, like, make it work in the middle, now what are you doing? Because you're just going to drive them away.
And I think that's the thing about, we were talking about earlier about, like, that great reset, in 2020, 2021, where people were home with themselves and their peoples and their kids and their dogs. And you saw relationships flourish and you saw relationships fall apart, and you saw maybe one person stop working and realize, oh, you know what? Maybe we don't need two salaries. Maybe we can, one person can stay home and spend more time with the kids. I mean, you had to do school at home and you had to do all these things. And I think there was a reprioritization of stuff. I sold my car like 2 years ago. I had this beautiful, nice Lexus, and it was sitting in front of the house. And I was like, I don't drive it anymore. I live downtown Chattanooga. I was walking everywhere. I was in Nashville. I could walk everywhere.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to sell my car. And now my fiance and I, we share a car. He, works remote, and I walk or bike or borrow his car. But, like, I'll tell people, we share a car, and people are like, you don't have your own car? I'm like, no. And I don't think I need one right now.
It's so un-American. Everyone needs a car.
It is. Everybody needs a car. And I'm like, but I don't think I need a car. And we have an electric car too, which is really nice lately, because I've seen those gas prices out there. They're crazy.
But I mean, I get it. Like, I run a business to where I need to haul a trailer. I need a truck. My wife has appointments to do during the day. Like, I get us having two cars.
Yeah.
I didn't buy the most expensive $80,000 F-150 on the market. I bought a reasonably priced $20,000 used vehicle. I bought her a reasonably priced, Ford Escape for $10,000. They're newer, but they're not, like, we replaced really old cars that we drove into the ground. I get it. And at some point, it'd be nice to just be like, okay, we don't need it. But now that I have kids, I probably have to go through the phase of, like, at some point there's going to be multiple cars in my driveway, and everyone will be using one, and then we'll downsize. So I respect you realizing, like, I don't need the object doesn't define me. I'm okay not having it and being different, and being, especially downtown Chattanooga is absolutely wonderful. Like, you can,
oh, it's great. You
can rent a bike still, probably. I haven't been there in a few years, but right. Like, you could go and, like, swipe your card and you could rent a bike to get around the thing. But yeah, it's all pretty much within walking distance or biking distance. And it's a wonderful area. And I'm Like you said, Nashville's probably the same way. Like, do you really need it, or can I get to the couple miles away? Yeah, it's going to take me a little bit longer, but one, the exercise is probably better for you. The time alone to have like interpersonal reflection time is probably better for you. So I think you're coming out ahead. And to be honest, like not just saving money on the car, but in general, getting the exercise and the time alone to like experience the world. You're way ahead of anybody in a car, because in the car you're flying by everything. You don't even realize what you're missing.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like, what do you really need? Which also started to happen last year. It's like, because I have some money in the bank, but it's like, oh, that money might not be there forever. So maybe your shopping habit can't be maybe what it was when you were earning more money. So, you start to look at things you just start to look at things a little different. It's like, oh, do I really need to go out to dinner as much? Do I really need a car? Do I really, I think things are way more simple. Like, they're simple,
I think they're supposed to be. I don't think
they're not real complicated.
I don't think things are supposed to be this complicated. I'm a God-fearing man, so I'm going to go from the Bible, but like we were put here to work, but like we were put here to like work the earth and like commune with animals and each other. Like if you're going to read it for what it is, do we need the cars? Do we need the technology? Do we need all the distractions? Probably not. You look at some of the happiest people on earth probably, and they probably live a very, very simple lifestyle without the distractions and all of the nonsense and the stress. My big go-to right now is like, I won't let my son's 12 and a half. So he's going to turn 13 in September. I don't want him to get a cell phone. I won't pay for it, because if you track the beginning of social media with suicide rates among teens, they correlate right along with each other. And as social media gained popularity, so did suicide rates in teens. He doesn't need all that nonsense. Yeah, I can't even handle all the nonsense within flooring groups. And these are grown men and women talking with each other. It's absolutely absurd. The nonsense that happens and the shit talking and the just cussing each other out and talking each other down, and like nobody needs that much stress to go online and like try and have a good time. Kid, you have to be able to disconnect. Like, I want him to be a kid and just enjoy his life. I think it's supposed to be simple. I don't think it's supposed to be complicated and overthought. But we, as imperfect people, like, we like to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Oh, it's so much harder. Why? So
there's this, I'm sure you've probably heard this story. There's this story about this fisherman. Like, this business guy goes down to wherever, some resort town, and he rents this boat from this fisherman, and they go out and fish all day. And this fisherman's great. Like, they catch all these fish, and the corporate guy's talking to the fisherman. He's like, you should have a whole fleet of boats. Like, you should have like 20 boats. And, you could have all this stuff and these things. And then, you'd have all the things, right? And the fisherman's like, but I already have all the things. Like, I got one boat. I go to have dinner with my family every night. Like, I get done at 3:00 every day. I take a nap, and then, I meet interesting people. Like, I don't need a fleet of boats. I'm sure that story could be told better, but it's along those lines. Yeah. Like I think it's back though to, when you're simple, when there's less distraction, you're more with yourself. You're more with this thing, and it starts chatting at you, loudly. So it's I manage a lot of my mind. I journal every morning. I do yoga. I meditate. Little over 12 years ago, I quit drinking. I had a pretty heavy alcohol problem, so that went away. And that was interesting because, like, talk about distraction. You could distract yourself from anything with,
correct, yeah,
20 cocktails. you know?
Yes, you can.
So, but you know, that was real because then it got real quiet because there was nowhere to go. Talk about being with yourself all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't escape into, you know, drinking. So I think that's really what kind of started like, okay, you're going to have to find some ways to like get along with yourself and like be at peace with you and your mind. And how are you going to do that? Like, you're going to have to find some stuff. So, you know, maybe it's long walks, maybe it's fishing at the pond,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe it's doing yoga, maybe it's riding your bike, maybe it's like driving long drives in your car, you know, I don't know, whatever it is that your mind, like, you have a chance to just like, you know, think.
Get with you. Be uncomfortable being with you, folks. I think that's, if Katie's teaching us anything, go be alone with your thoughts and actually like listen to them and figure them out. And as flooring installers or, you know, shower installers or tile people or hardwood people or carpet people, whatever, like, look, we get tons of interpersonal reflection time. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
The client's not down your throat all day.
Yeah.
The apprentice or the other employees aren't down your throat all day. You're doing some monotonous task for hours on end. I know you get interpersonal reflection time. Use some of it. Look at yourself. Figure out what you want, where you want to go, how you can fix these problems, what you can do with them, and grow.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of that, you know, I think I've installed one floor in my life and it was very difficult, and I have mad respect for all flooring installers out there because that shit's hard. But just kind of I imagine the meditative state you could get into of laying rows of hardwood or, you know, putting the grout down and making it really smooth, or, you know, tacking the carpet. Like, there is something kind of about creating, right? Like getting into that creative process of like where you're, you know, you're present, but you're also like in your zone.
Correct.
Is always a great place to get to.
There's times that there's not a lot of mental capacity required to figure out how to cut something, and you can just kind of, your mind can be distracted elsewhere where you're still processing what you actively need to do, but you're off daydreaming. And so enjoy those moments, figure it out, and come to your senses. I don't know what it's going to be, but like, just use those moments and truly discover what you need to be doing for your business. So, Katie, is there something that I should have asked you during this interview that I didn't ask you? Is there something that you wanted to get off your chest that we didn't kind of hit on?
I don't think so, Kyle. You ask a lot of really great questions. It's really been a pleasure talking with you. And thank you for having me on and wanting to listen to what I really think is like the most boring story. But I get calls. I got a call from a friend last week who, you know, he works in a big corporate job and he's got, you know, all the things, right? And he's like, hey, I just wanted to call and talk to you because like I'm having a moment.
That's
you know? And I've had several other people like the same way. They're like, you know, I just wonder if there's like something else. And I think all of us go through that. And maybe, you know, maybe it's not taking a year off to reflect on that. Okay. But maybe it is taking an afternoon or an hour or a weekend. And maybe it's starting to think, well, I want to work towards X, you know, or I want to do whatever. And you have to do it right that minute. But maybe you can get yourself in a position where you can get right where you want to be. It doesn't have to be when you're 65. It doesn't have to be on somebody else's timeline. It can be on your timeline. What is it, you know?
Well, I think that's it, right? You set the timeline.
You set the timeline.
Even if you're under like your corporate overlord, right? Like
That's a menace thing, Kyle. It's not. It's not that bad.
It's not that, I know, but that's why I put the quote. You can't see them online. Corporate overlord. Like, I'm being facetious about it, right? Like, that's how some people look at it, though. Go have fun. Like, you can set your own goals and make your own things happen in your life. I didn't know that I was going to create what I created. I didn't know I was going to create this podcast and mastermind groups and Facebook group and then run a flooring business on top of it and participate in my kids' Cub Scouting life. And look, there's 8,000 things going on, but they all come together and they build who you are, build who you want to be, and let it be happy. Let it be at peace. Let it be something that you want it to be. Don't make it be what the culture says it has to be, because the culture's stupid and they're wrong anyways. Because it is. Look, it's wrong. Okay. If we're all, look, having come from reality television, I can tell you it's wrong, because if you're looking at television stars and movie stars and singers and songwriters and all this big money stuff, or you want to be like Elon Musk and own, or Jeff Bezos, and like, these are the people in the news. They've got billions of dollars. They're still just as depressed as the rest of us, and they can't figure it out because they don't have enough time to stop and just think.
And that would really suck, right? If you get that much success and all that money and you still are depressed and can't figure it out.
Exactly. No, I listened to this one rapper, and he's talking about, like, he has a song where, like, he intros it and he's talking about, like, he always wanted to be like on the big stage and sold out tour and #1 song and all this stuff. And like, he admits, like, I had it. And it was the most depressed I've ever been. So you hit your target, but then you had to set a new one because it wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can learn to, like you said, right? If you can learn to be at peace in that moment, that's a different situation. Then you can truly experience that moment for what it was.
Yeah.
So I think that's great advice.
Yeah. It's never too late. Like, it's never, like, we were talking about earlier, I'd always had this dream of being up on stage and singing. Mm-hmm. And my fiance is a musician, and I got to be in his band, and I got to sing backup, and I got to play the tambourine.
There you go.
And I'm like, yeah. So now I'm taking voice lessons, and I've got my piano out, and I'm, practicing the piano, and, there's part of me that's like, oh, you're too old for this. Like, you're not going to do anything anyway. But I'm like, you know what? No, it's fun. I enjoy doing this. I don't know if it'll go anywhere. I might never make a dime off of it. It doesn't matter. It's not about earning. It's like, let's just be happy and do it because it feels good. Feels good to sing and be on stage and play music. Like, it's fun. Mm-hmm. And I want to do some more of it.
I think that's what we need. We need to be out there having fun. Like, if you don't like what you do, if you are absolutely miserable going to work every day, why are you doing it? There's other options. Like, I hate it when I see these people like, I hate flooring, but I've been doing it 30 years. Like, I'm going to keep doing it.
No,
bro, go get a job. Go get a job at McDonald's if you want. Like, you may not make as much, but you can maybe get some career advancements through them and like make enough. Like, enjoy what you do. I wasn't enjoying everything about flooring. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm bored laying rectangles, but I have this podcast as a release. I get to use a little bit more of my creative side. Yeah. I get to have awesome conversations. I get to help other people grow their businesses. That I've found other ways to have fun. Go find ways to have fun. Go find ways to be at peace with yourself. Like, don't torture yourself because somebody says you have to make $80,000 a year and have the fancy car and a wife and 2 kids and a dog. Like, why?
Oh, Kyle, that's another thing I have to remind to myself is, like, have fun. Please have fun. Like, stop being so serious. I know I don't really look serious, but I'm like so serious sometimes. And it's like, lighten up, have some fun. It's not that big a deal.
Don't talk to my wife.
Lighten up.
That is exactly what you will get out of my wife. You're so serious all the time.
Yeah, quit being so serious.
That's me. Like, I can't.
Me, but lighten up.
I get it. And right, you once again get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, go be uncomfortable and grow. Like, learn how to change that about yourself. So, no, I think that's great. I love all of this. I think it's very helpful. Folks, there's not the straight up like business advice in this episode to take away from it. But I don't think that's never what I wanted out of this episode. What I wanted was like the advice is just go enjoy life. Go be simple. You don't need all the things. You need to go experience the moment. If I was going to name one, the first time I held my daughter, she was born premature and spent 66 days in the NICU, but she was 2 pounds, 6 ounces. No, 2 pounds, 8 ounces, I think. But she fit in the palm of my hand because she was so tiny. And I can just envision that. Like her preemie diaper was the size of a saltine cracker. And even that was too big for her. They had to like roll it down. So that's what I'm going to remember. It doesn't matter that the business does 350,000 a year, or 10 million a year, or whatever that number is. That moment, that connection, that experience. That's what we need to go do. That's why we're dealing with all the nonsense. Is to go have that moment and experience that. And she doesn't care if there's a 3,000 square foot roof over her head. We could have a 500 square foot roof over our head. That's evaluate where you're at. I think that's the message. Evaluate where you're at and see what you really want. And if it's not, work towards it. Katie is. Why can't you? I am. It's ever changing.
And you might not have all the answers.
I don't.
You might not. You might not know. You don't know. And it's okay. And it's scary, but it's okay.
Right. Yes. It is. It's scary, and it is okay. And there's people to talk to. Call me. My phone number is out there. Okay.
Yeah, y'all can call me too. You can put my number out there, Kyle. I'd be happy to talk to anybody who wants to call.
What's your number?
706-618-1860. 706-618-1860. That is my cell. And y'all call me if you want to. Tell me watch this whole podcast with Kyle and me, and we can talk about anything you want.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything you want.
No, seriously, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Look, my info's out there. Other people that have been on the show. I know so many people in this industry that if you just pick up the phone and you call them, they're not going to turn you down. They are happy to talk, whether it's about the business, whether it's about your personal life. Like, look, we're all, this industry has so much camaraderie within it. Like, we just want to help each other and build the industry up. So do not hesitate. You can go back. I did a special episode with Michelle Winters, Crystal Sims, and Katie Marcotte. And we were talking about women getting more involved and stepping up and owning their place in this industry. But what the message really is like, it came down to like somebody went to a show and didn't have the greatest experience ever. And don't hesitate to like go talk to the person that has magazine articles written about them and stuff when you're out there at these shows. Like, just walk up and they're going to be more than happy to talk to you. And if they're not, screw that person. Like, there's no room for this like diva attitude. Like, I understand that some of us are divas and whatnot, and I get it. But if they don't want to like actively participate in helping grow the industry, you really don't want to be talking to that person anyway. So don't be afraid to go approach the quote unquote stars and celebrities of this industry that are out there in your mind. They're just like you. They own a business. They have families. Yes.
They would love it. Like, I loved it when people would call me out of the blue. Like, I know you're too busy to talk to me. I'm like, no, what's going on? Hey, I got this question about marketing, or I have this question about whatever. And I loved it when people would call me. Loved it.
It's fun. It's a great little distraction. Once again, it helps you reconnect with a lot of your roots because there's somewhere that you've been. And you just want to see people succeed. So let me give that information to you. Like, I have nothing to hide. I'm happy to tell you how I built what I built. I'm not worried about it. There's enough to go around for everybody. So,
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cut it. We're gonna get off soapboxes now. We're gonna step down. We're gonna end this. I'm gonna shut her down. I'm sorry. Check out flooracademypod.com. You can go on there. I've got a bunch of awesome spreadsheets that you can look at. If you go to patreon.com/flooracademy, you can sign up to help support the show. Even $5 a month goes a long way in continuing to make this happen. Once again, if you can let a friend know, subscribe, leave a review. If you have a topic you want to talk about, you can send it to me at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, Katie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for discussing your I don't know, your year or more of like just
journey.
Yeah, just being you and experiencing life and being free of and not that you're free of the stresses of the world. You admitted that they were there, but like you're trying not to let them get to you. You're trying to discover what you really want. And once again, I commend you for that. I think it's a very honorable journey to truly try and find happiness and experience what's going to bring you joy every day. So thank you for sharing that with us, and tune in again next week for another exciting story. I don't know what it's going to be. I really don't. I forget. I don't know where they're all going to land, but tune in again because we always got something exciting going on around here. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.